What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to College Football Talk with Peter Burtnett, and welcome back to my positional ranking series is what I'll call this. In this video, we're shifting gears over to the defense. I'm going to be going over my top 5 defensive line units in college football. This isn't a individual rankings. I know I kind of did that a little bit with my offensive series, especially with the quarterbacks and running backs, but going over each of the positions on the defensive side just is a little bit more labor intensive, I guess. So just going over the top 5 units. But before I get into this video, if you go on to enjoy, please feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you're always up to date whenever I upload. But starting things out with the top 5, I am going with the Georgia Bulldogs. This is a team year in and year out that produces on the defensive side of the ball. They've got some big holes to replace, but they've also got some good players coming back and even a couple of important freshmen. So starting things out, Kristen Miller is a really good defensive lineman right there in the middle of what is a 3 front. And then you've also got Jordan Hall at defensive end, and he is joined by Gabe Harris Jr. Now, this team also has a couple of really talented true freshmen coming in. 2 of their top 5 recruits are Elijah Griffin and Isaiah Gibson. Both of those 2 guys, we've seen it before, even with Miller last year, that they can make an immediate impact. Both of these 2 guys could be really vital for the Bulldogs this year. I think just the fact that they're a little more unproven and that Georgia probably, what they're losing, they have a little bit to prove right now. These guys that are coming in that are new, but we know what Georgia defensive lines can do, so that's why they're right up there in the top 5 once again. Coming in at number 4, I have Miami. Now, they've got a guy in Ruben Bain who, to a certain extent, I think maybe to some, didn't have quite the season we all expected from last year, especially considering the season he had before, but he's a really good defensive lineman with only 3.5 sacks, but part of that might be down to being double-teamed, and in his place, Akeem Mesidor stepped up big time. He had 5.5 sacks, so these 2 guys combined to make the Hurricanes kind of a pretty dangerous defensive front. They were also joined by Ahmad Moten Sr. and Armando Blount, and they've also got a good linebacker that I'll probably touch on a little bit more in my next video, but just to mention him, Wesley Bisanthe, or Basanth, I think, one of the 2. So that's a really good defensive line unit. Coming in at number 3 is Texas. I think they have one of the top defensive linemen that's more established in Colin Simmons. He put up some really big numbers for the Longhorns last year and is just a really disruptive piece. But they've also got arguably the top freshman coming in, the top freshman defensive lineman coming in this season with Justice Terry. He's a guy who can plug in and play. He was, very, very dangerous at the high school level, and is the type of player that could plug in right away. They also picked up a pretty good transfer, Murad Wilson from Syracuse, who was a freshman All-American for the Orange last year. And just going back to Simmons real quick, 14 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles in a sensational debut season. So he will be a dangerous piece. And again, he's one of the top defensive linemen in college football. So that's what kind of puts Texas up here in the top 3. Then, coming in at number 2, we have Penn State, and once again, this is why they're one of the title favorites. If you've seen the 3 previous videos in this series, they've been right up there among the top 5 at quarterback, running back, and on the offensive line, and they're right here. Obviously, Abdul Carter is a big loss to fill, but Dennis Sutton put up some really big numbers for the Nittany Lions. I'll put up those last year and was really disruptive. And they've also got Zane Durant. Both of those 2 guys are 2 of the best defensive linemen in the country, and that's what makes Penn State really dangerous. 2 other guys that'll be kind of joining both of those guys, Alonzo Ford Jr. and Zariah Fisher are the 2 guys expected to start on the opposite side of the defensive line. But I think the top defensive line in college football is the Clemson Tigers. And if you've seen these other videos, the Tigers as well are starting to top a few of these lists. I had them with the number 2 quarterback, Cade Klubnik, the number 2 wide receiver group, and I also have them here with the number 1 defensive line group, and that starts with defensive end TJ Parker. Parker had an astounding 19.5 tackles for loss and 11 sacks, and was just overall a disruptive piece. Dabo Swinney also tapping into the transfer portal here, bringing in Will Helt from Purdue, but also arguably the best defensive tackle, one of the best in college football, is Peter Woods, and he'll be back this season. He's moving back to defensive tackle and cut some weight in the offseason. Helt is coming in with 10 tackles for loss from the Boilermakers, and so he is probably one of the top defensive linemen, defensive end transfers in the portal this offseason. DeMonte Capehart is another guy, defensive tackle, and then probably their top or one of their top 2 recruits is defensive lineman Amari Adams. So this is going to be a really good defensive line. Statistically, this Clemson defense gave up a lot of rushing yards, but they also had a really high turnover margin. That might point a little bit more to how they take care of the ball and how their safeties do in terms of getting interceptions. But overall, they have a disruptive defensive line that will be really big in their chances to not only repeat as ACC champions, but also maybe to make it even deeper into the playoff. I think they've got as good a chance as really any team to get to the college football playoff semifinals, and I think that a big piece of that is this defensive line. But that is all for this episode of College Football Talk. Leave your thoughts in the comments below on which teams you think have the top 5 defensive lines in college football, and of course stay tuned for my next video, which is going to be going over the top 5 linebacker units in college football. But that is all for this episode. Again, I'm your host, Peter Burnett, signing out. Peace.